Welcome to this edition of The Bigger Game from Surviving to Thriving. With our guest today is Vladimir Gendelman from Company Folders, doing promotional items and folders and envelopes for some of the world's biggest brands. How are you this morning?
I'm doing great, Abizar. Thank you for having me on.
Of course. Uh, this is the bigger game. We talk about playing the long game, taking the high road, uh, and playing life full out. That's the bigger game. What do you think the bigger game is in your definition? How would you describe it?
Bigger game to me is to feel happy and content at all times. And to do that, you have to have your life in order. See, when I was growing up, my mom always used to tell me, we are not rich enough to buy cheap things. In other words, anytime I wanted some cheap little thing that breaks in 5 minutes, my mom would always say no. We're not rich enough to buy cheap things. However, anytime I needed something, she would always get me something that's of a quality so that it would last. It might cost more money right now, but it would last much longer. And over the years, I learned to apply that rule in my life and in business. And it doesn't just cover financial aspect of things, right? It also covers the emotional, how you treat people and how you build friendship. It's exactly the same thing. I don't have, you can spin it around and say, I don't have too many friends where I could treat people poorly, right? Obviously, it doesn't sound as good when you put it this way, but the bottom line is that when you treat people really good every time based on who you are as opposed to who you think they are, right? You always come out on top. Because you hear people say all the time, oh, that person would never do this for me, so I'm not going to do that for them. Well, that's lowering your own standards. To me, I know who I am. I know what my values are, and I'm going to treat everybody based on my values. If whoever I treat turns out to have values that are different, so be it, right? But I stay true to myself no matter what. And of course, when
The
I
bigger
purchase
game?
things, huh?
The
What'd
bigger
you say?
game?
It's a bigger
I said
game.
that's the bigger game. Yeah,
That is.
treating
Yeah.
people like you that honors your honor code versus something else,
Yeah.
regardless of the situation. Yeah, it's fantastic. Keep going.
So yeah, and I started my business with the same philosophy. Uh, when it comes to buying, and let's even say computers, right? I don't go for cheap computer out there. I'll get the best there is, and I know that it will last me longer time. However, it will not only last me longer time, it will be more pleasurable for my employees to use. And the more they enjoy using that computer, the more efficient and more fun they're going to have with it. Therefore, they're going to treat customers better, right? When I buy,
The little things. It's the little things, right? Inside the bigger
it,
game.
it's always little
Yeah.
things, right? Because people notice that. Um, when I buy snacks for the office, I get things that are healthier as opposed to just a whole bunch of sugar because it provides better results over time. When we have a situation with the customer, let's say something went wrong, because it happens in every business, right? Doing the right thing is always the most important thing to do, which kind of goes into that whole thing that we're not rich enough to buy cheap things. I don't have too many clients, right? I don't think anybody could ever have too many clients. So I cannot treat my customers poorly. I got to make sure that everybody's taken care of.
That's excellent. You have quite a road, right? You were where were you born?
Ukraine. Well,
So coming from Ukraine and coming all the way here, having your mom telling you that when you were younger, and then living your life that way to today. maybe there's a story or two you could share about that journey where this really applied, and we could take something away from in specific from that, like a nugget for ourselves here today. Do you have anything you could share
Yeah,
about that?
yeah. I a little embarrassing, but I can even share a story where I didn't follow that rule, and what happened as the result. So when I started the company, we are, as you mentioned, we're printing company. Our specialty is presentation folders, binders, envelopes, and we are online company. So at the beginning, um, I hired a cheap company just because I didn't really have any money to do online promotions for me. They were cheap, and the work they provided was cheap in itself when it comes to SEO. However, it provided good results in the sense that, I ranked at the top of Google and everything was great. However, because it was cheap work, they never did it they never did it all the way properly. And in 2012, I received a notification from Google, which was called unnatural link warning. And we lost, as the result, 76% of our traffic, which was almost bankruptcy kind of loss. Now, luckily, I have an amazing team here. We buckled down. It took us about a year to undo all the bad things that were done. And then we started rebuilding from there and rebuilding properly. And most importantly, we stopped doing all this nonsense links and everything else that the company was doing. And as the result, now we're in much, much better shape. And also, what I found out from that experience is that while I was building a company based on cheap, quick wins, the company itself didn't really have much of a foundation. And after this whole experience with Google, we revamped everything. The whole cultural aspect of the company, the product offering, how we do it, why we do it, right? And what we do it for. And as the result, we have solid foundation now. We have solid recognition from all sorts of media outlets nowadays and customers. As you mentioned, we do serve some of the largest brands out there like Amazon, Google, NFL, NHL, Chick-fil-A. The fun part is when my daughter was little, we used to do binders and folders for Hello Kitty. And I brought home Hello Kitty binders and envelopes, and they were all pink and purple. And my daughter didn't know what to do with herself. It was so exciting. And another fun job was, have you seen Seinfeld episode with the Soup Nazi?
Yes.
So the Soup Nazi is this guy. He had a little stand in New York called Soup Man, right? And then it became a franchise. So when they became a franchise, they actually had one here in Birmingham, Michigan. We were doing folders for them also for several years, which was a lot of fun.
Excellent. So when you expand this out to other parts of your life, obviously it's a financial aspect. It's from your company perspective. Anywhere personally where you've looked at this and brought that same concept in your personal life.
Yeah, my kids, for example, right? So when they want something or I think they need something, I check it against what is the rich and what is cheap. And if whatever they're looking to do is not building on something for the future, right? If it's just a cheap thrill of some sort, we don't usually do that. If, on the other hand, it's something that provides a value down the road, it's a totally different story. Um, for example, my kid wants to go to a different city. If there is an opportunity for me to go with them and have this amazing experience where they can learn something, maybe we can observe something and have this time together and everything else, that's great. If they want to do something that um, could potentially be destructive, right? Or let's just go to some ice cream museum or chocolate museum. We've done that once, just because you kind of have to get it out of the way. But I would not be taking them to the ice cream museum over and over, because it's nothing but sugar. It's not good for you, right? And most importantly, I don't want them to believe that you can do this thing as treats. You know how a lot of times, oh, you did a good job, here's the candy. Well, candy is not good for you, so why reward somebody with something that's not good for you? So I apply it that way. Um, Obviously, at home, we either do something, for example, remodeling the house, parts of the house, getting new uh, appliances or whatever else. We can either get something that's amazing and will last a long time, or we don't get it. We either gonna do landscaping the right way, or we're not gonna do it, and on and on and on. Right? We're not gonna do halfway kind of a job.
Excellent. So when you raised your kids this way, have you noticed uh, any impact or any results in their lives where you suddenly were like, wow, they did that? Was there any aha moments for them as you've taken them down this journey that you can recall? And no, it's okay too. I haven't really, maybe there isn't anything you can come with it now.
Yeah. So a year ago, my son tried out for a varsity team in high school. He just finished ninth grade and he's going into 10th. So he finished. He tried for the varsity team for tennis, and he didn't make it. And partially he didn't make it because he wasn't practicing hard enough prior to that. He decided to take more time off. He wasn't that serious about it. And literally, he didn't make it by a little bit.
Hmm.
And we had a conversation, and he realized that he didn't practice enough. And through previous upbringing, right, through everything he knew, he decided that it's either he will make it happen or he will not. Kind of, what's the point of doing it halfway, right? So he practiced the whole year really, really hard. Like, you can tell his mindset changed towards tennis, his physical ability changed, and he practiced to the point where this summer, when I offered him, I usually take my kids on one-on-one trips every year. This summer, my son told me he cannot go on a trip with me because he has to train for tennis. And he trained for tennis. And he not only made onto varsity team for his school, they have two teams, A and B. So A is like better and B is like kind of secondary. So he made it onto varsity A team, which is huge.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. And I've seen similar things with my daughter. I've seen similar things with my son that applies. And yeah.
That's fantastic. So it's all by the values that we instill with our kids and the people around us and how we choose to do things. I think this whole conversation, starting from living life from my values versus somebody else's. It doesn't matter who I'm dealing with, right? Living with my own values, and then working all the way through, and now talking about your son, your own situation with Google and a cheap marketing company and the results you got, right? To now your son, where you've imparted this, and your other kids you've imparted this to as well, right? And your daughter, around and the thing is, you didn't like tell them. The cool thing is you didn't tell them. You instilled it and showed it to them, right? I think you've been. We haven't talked for long, but it seems pretty clear that you've lived this way. You've lived this mantra
Yes.
of we're too rich to buy poor things,
Yes.
or cheap things, right? Your entire life, and it's many times it's not the words that come out of our mouths; it's the actions that we take that our kids and everybody else notice, right? Words or talk is cheap, and walking the walk is what people want to see, and that's what they actually do, and then they appreciate. And so it's fascinating to appreciate from your mom saying that all the way to the results you created with your own kids, her grandkids, just living that. Like you said, one small thing at a time. All the small stuff matters, like you said. That's
100%.
Is there anything else you want to share today?
Those would be the biggest things. I mean, obviously we had situations where they wanted some kind of t-shirt or whatever else, which would be of low quality and wouldn't last, and I wouldn't buy it. But then on some other occasions, buy something that's, double or triple the money, but it's going to last and keep its form and so on and so forth. So we had things like that happen throughout the lifetime a lot. And you're right, that's how they learn. And sugar, particularly at the young age, I started, when they ask for things, right, I would flip it over and look at the nutrients, and I see, oh, you see here, it shows that it has 23 grams of sugar. That's not good. But then this thing here does not. So why don't we go this way? And then a few years later, when my son would ask me something, I'm like, oh, did you check the sugar content? He would look at it and go, oh, it has too much sugar. I'm not going to have it. And then another few years later, he would not even ask me. He would go there. He would look at the sugar. Oh, too much sugar. He would not even consider it. That's the cool part. When they get to the point where, they can do it all themselves based on what you taught them.
Yeah. So over time, it's become an ingrained. They've taken ownership of that phrase. Really.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
So I think that's the other thing I take away from this is that taking the small steps like this, and like the small things matter, and doing it over and over again. Instilling that in our children and giving them the ownership of that statement. Like your mom owned it, then you owned it.
Well, my grandfather owned it, then my mom, then me, then now
the blessings
kids.
of watching your kids actually own it and experiencing that. So that's yeah. Is there anything you want to wrap up with today? I'm sorry, I think I lost you for a second.
No, that's really the biggest point for me. So the one part and thought is that consistency is very important, and staying true to yourself and to your own values is very important. With that said, you got to take time to figure out what your values are, what's really, really important to you, and stick with that. And don't compromise.
Yeah. I think, there's that whole thing about trying to fit into a group, right? And people live like, in order for me to belong to that group, I got to be like that group. So I many times I sell out my own values and my own uniqueness to fit into that group. And the group is actually valuing my uniqueness. Is why they want me part of the group, right? If I'm like everybody else, what value do I bring, right?
Exactly.
So that's fascinating. Yeah, excellent. Thanks for sharing all that with us today, Vladimir.
Absolutely.
How can people reach you if they want to contact you?
Companyfolders.com. There is a phone number there, and you can also email me at Vladimir@companyfolders.com.
Excellent. Thanks for being on today.
Of course. Thank you, Abizir.